Let me tell you something nobody wants to admit. Respect isn't something you earn through years of hard work and dedication. That's the fairy tale version we tell ourselves to feel better about the social hierarchy. The truth? Respect is a psychological game, and most people don't even know they're playing it. I spent years being the nice guy, the one who said yes to everything, who laughed at jokes that weren't funny, who shrunk myself down to make others comfortable. And you know what I got for it? Absolutely nothing. People walked over me like I was a welcome mat with "Please wipe your feet here" printed in bold letters. Then, something clicked. I started studying the people who commanded respect effortlessly. Not the loudest ones in the room, not the bullies, but the ones everyone listened to when they spoke. The ones whose opinions mattered. The ones who could walk into any situation and immediately shift the energy. What I discovered changed everything. Here's your first mind hack. Silence is the most powerful tool in your arsenal, and you're probably throwing it away every single day. Most people are terrified of silence. Watch any conversation and you'll see it. The frantic scrambling to fill every gap with words, the nervous laughter, the and like, and you know what I mean? That punctuate every sentence like verbal crutches. We've been conditioned to believe that silence means awkwardness, that gaps in conversation are failures. That's exactly backwards. When you speak immediately, you're showing your cards. You're demonstrating that you need the interaction more than the other person does. You're revealing your desperation for approval, your fear of being forgotten if you don't constantly remind people you exist. But when you pause, when you let 3 seconds of silence hang in the air before you respond, everything changes. That pause communicates something primal. It says, "I'm considering whether your statement is worth my response." It says, "I think before I speak." Most importantly, it says, "I'm comfortable with myself." Try this tomorrow. When someone asks you a question, count to 3 before answering. Not in an obvious way. You're not trying to be weird. Just take a breath, actually think about what you want to say, and then speak. Watch how people lean forward slightly. Watch how they pay more attention to your words. The uncomfortable truth is that people assign value to things based on scarcity. Words that come immediately feel cheap. Words that come after thoughtful consideration feel valuable. You're not changing what you say, you're changing when you say it, and that makes all the difference.
Now, let's talk about something that makes everyone uncomfortable. Looking people directly in the eyes. You've been told your whole life to make eye contact during conversations. Good advice, terrible execution. Because what most people do is this weird, frantic eye-darting thing where they look at someone's eyes for half a second, then glance away, then back, then away again, like they're watching the world's most boring tennis match. This isn't confidence. This is anxiety wearing a confidence costume. Here's the paradox. The person who controls eye contact controls the interaction. But control doesn't mean staring like a serial killer. It means being deliberate. When someone is speaking to you, hold their gaze. Not aggressively, not intensely, just hold it. Let them be the one who looks away first. Most people will break eye contact within 3 to 5 seconds because sustained eye contact triggers a primal response. It creates intimacy, and intimacy makes people nervous. But here's where it gets interesting. When you speak, you can look away. Glance off to the side while you collect your thoughts, then return your gaze when you make your point. This pattern, receiving information with direct eye contact, processing with averted gaze, delivering conclusions with renewed eye contact, signals confidence and control. Why does this work? Because it flips the script on normal social dynamics. Usually, the person listening holds eye contact while the speaker looks around. When you reverse this, you're subtly communicating, What you're saying is important enough for my full attention, but what I'm about to say is important enough that I don't need to watch for your approval. It's a tiny shift. Most people won't consciously notice it, but their brain will, and their brain will respect you for it.
Everyone knows that using someone's name makes them like you more. Dale Carnegie figured that out a century ago. But here's what Carnegie didn't tell you. How you use their name matters more than if you use it. Using someone's name at the start of every sentence makes you sound like a customer service robot. Well, Jessica, I think that's a great point, Jessica, and I'd love to hear more, Jessica, about your thoughts on this, Jessica. No, stop it. You sound desperate. Here's the actual power move. Use their name sparingly, but strategically. Use it when you're about to say something important, when you're disagreeing with them, or when you're delivering a compliment. Marcus, I have to disagree with you on that. Sarah, that's actually brilliant. David, I need you to understand something. Why does this work? Because using someone's name triggers their attention. It's a verbal finger snap that says, pay attention to what comes next. When you pair that attention trigger with something meaningful, a compliment, a challenge, a serious point, you create a psychological anchor. They remember not just that you used their name, but that you used it before saying something that mattered. The people who command respect don't sprinkle names around like confetti. They use names like punctuation marks, rarely, but with impact.
Here's something that will separate you from 90% of people. Learn to disagree without being disagreeable. Most people fall into one of two camps. Camp 1, the people pleasers, who nod along with everything, who bite their tongue to avoid conflict, who'd rather die than say, I don't agree with that. Camp 2, the contrarians, who turn every conversation into a debate, who need to prove they're the smartest person in the room, who mistake arguing for intelligence. Both camps are respect graveyards. The people pleasers lose respect because they have no backbone. Nobody respects someone who stands for nothing. And the contrarians lose respect because they're exhausting. Nobody wants to be around someone who treats every conversation like a courtroom. The sweet spot? Disagree selectively, disagree calmly, and disagree with curiosity. Here's the formula. I see it differently. Can I share my perspective? That's it. You're not attacking, you're not backing down, you're opening a dialogue. And here's the crucial part. When you share your perspective, you don't demolish their argument. You present your view as an alternative, not as the only correct view. That's an interesting take. Here's what I've noticed. I've thought about this differently. From my experience, it seems like, notice what's missing? Phrases like, you're wrong, or that doesn't make sense, or actually. That word, actually, is poison. It's the linguistic equivalent of rolling your eyes. Every time you say, actually, you're saying, you're stupid and I'm smart. When you disagree with respect and genuine curiosity, something magical happens. People don't get defensive, they get interested. They ask follow-up questions. They respect your willingness to think independently while respecting their perspective. You become someone whose opinion matters precisely because you don't force it down people's throats.
Everyone gives compliments wrong. They give generic, meaningless compliments that sound like they were generated by an AI trained on greeting cards. Great job. You're awesome. Love that. These compliments are verbal cotton candy, sweet, fluffy, and completely without substance. They make people feel good for about 3 seconds, then evaporate from memory. Want to be respected? Give compliments that demonstrate you actually pay attention. Instead of great presentation, try the way you handled that tough question about budget constraints showed real quick thinking. I wouldn't have thought to frame it as an opportunity. Instead of nice outfit, try that color combination is bold.
Most people wouldn't have the confidence to pull it off. See the difference? You're not just praising them, you're showing that you noticed specific details, that you were paying attention, that your compliment comes from genuine observation rather than social obligation. But here's the reversal that really builds respect. When someone compliments you, don't deflect it. Someone says, "Great work on that project," and most people respond with, "Oh, it was nothing," or "I just got lucky," or "My team did all the real work." You think you're being humble. You're not. You're being insulting. You're essentially telling the person who complimented you that they have bad judgment. If your work was nothing, then what does it say about their ability to recognize quality? Instead, try this. "Thank you. I worked hard on that." Or, "I appreciate you noticing that." Or, "That means a lot coming from you." You accept the compliment. You don't inflate it, but you don't deflate it either. You treat it like what it is, an observation of value that you provided. People respect those who recognize their own worth without arrogance.
This is the one that nobody wants to hear because you can't fake it. The energy you bring into a room is the respect you'll receive. I don't mean being loud or enthusiastic or high energy in the motivational speaker sense. I mean being intentional about your presence. Most people enter rooms like apologetic ghosts. They slip in quietly, they take up as little space as possible, they wait to be noticed. They bring the energy of someone who's hoping to not be kicked out. Others enter like they're crashing a party they weren't invited to. Too loud, too much, demanding attention like they're entitled to it. They bring the energy of insecurity masked as confidence. The people who command respect, they enter like they belong there. Not because they're better than anyone else, but because they've decided that their presence has value. They walk in at a normal pace, not rushing, not dragging. They make eye contact with people naturally. They don't announce themselves, but they don't hide either. Here's a test. Next time you enter a room with multiple people, notice your internal dialogue. Are you thinking, "I hope they like me," or "I wonder what they're talking about," or "I'm not sure I should be here"? That's the wrong channel. Instead, try, "I'm here because I have something to contribute." Not in an arrogant way, just as a fact. You exist, you have thoughts and experiences and perspectives, and your presence adds something to the space. If you don't believe that, nobody else will either. In our hyper-connected world, everyone expects immediate responses. Text messages, emails, Slack notifications. We've trained ourselves to jump every time our phone buzzes like Pavlov's dog salivating at a bell. This is destroying your respect. When you respond immediately to everything, you're communicating several things. I have nothing more important to do than respond to you. I'm waiting around for your messages. My time is not valuable. Now, I'm not telling you to play games. Don't wait 3 days to respond to a text message because some pickup artist guru told you it makes you seem mysterious. That's childish. But be intentional. When you receive a message, ask yourself, does this require an immediate response? If it's not urgent, finish what you're doing first. Take 30 minutes. Take an hour. Take until it's convenient for you. This does 2 things. First, it trains people that your time has boundaries. Second, it ensures your responses are thoughtful rather than reactive. The people who command the most respect in any organization are rarely the ones who respond fastest. They're the ones who respond most thoughtfully. They're the ones whose reply you know will be worth waiting for.
Here's the most counterintuitive respect builder of all. Being willing to walk away from situations, relationships, or conversations that don't serve you. Most people believe that commitment and persistence earn respect. Sometimes they do, but often they earn you the opposite. They earn you the reputation of someone who will tolerate anything, accept any treatment, swallow any disrespect, because you're too afraid to leave. I learned this the hard way. I stayed in friendships where I was the only one reaching out. I stayed in jobs where my contributions were ignored. I stayed in conversations where people talked over me, and I told myself I was being loyal, being patient, being mature. I was being a doormat. The moment I started walking away from situations where I wasn't valued, everything changed. Not because walking away is some alpha male power move, but because it communicated something fundamental. I respect myself enough to require respect from others. You don't need to make dramatic exits. You don't need to slam doors or deliver speeches. You just leave. The conversation that's going nowhere, I need to head out. The friend who only calls when they need something, stop being available every time. The meeting where people talk over you, stand up and walk out calmly. People notice. More importantly, they adjust. When you demonstrate that your presence is a choice, not a given, people start treating that presence as valuable. Let me end with the big secret, the one that ties everything together. Confidence isn't feeling sure of yourself. It's being okay with uncertainty. The people who command the most respect aren't the ones who pretend to have all the answers. They're the ones who are comfortable saying, "I don't know," or "I'm figuring that out," or "I made a mistake." Real confidence is saying, "I don't understand. Can you explain that again?" in a room full of people nodding along, pretending they get it. Real confidence is admitting, "I was wrong about that. I've changed my mind." Real confidence is saying, "I need help with this," instead of struggling in silence. Because here's what nobody tells you. People don't respect perfection. They respect authenticity. They respect people who are secure enough in themselves to be vulnerable, to admit limitations, to ask for help. The person who pretends to know everything commands no respect. They're too busy maintaining their facade to actually be useful. But the person who says, "I don't know, but I'll find out," or "I made a mistake, here's how I'm fixing it," that person is trustworthy. And trust is the foundation of respect.
These psychological tricks work. I've tested them for years in boardrooms, in classrooms, at parties, and in one-on-one conversations. They'll change how people see you and treat you. But here's the thing nobody wants to hear. Tricks only take you so far. Real, lasting respect comes from being someone worth respecting. It comes from developing competence, integrity, and character. It comes from doing the work when nobody's watching, from keeping your word even when it costs you something, from treating people with dignity even when they can't do anything for you. The psychological tricks get people's attention. They create that initial impression, that first feeling of, "This person is different." But you still have to back it up with substance. You still have to be someone who delivers on what your presence promises. Use these tools. Master the silence, the eye contact, the strategic disagreement. Learn to accept compliments and give meaningful ones. Control your energy and your response time. Be willing to walk away when necessary. But remember, these aren't substitutes for actual competence and character. They're amplifiers. They make sure that the value you have gets seen and respected by others. Because at the end of the day, respect isn't really about tricks at all. It's about having enough self-respect that you require others to respect you too. It's about valuing yourself enough that you won't accept anything less than being treated with dignity. Everything else is just showing people what you already know about yourself, that your presence, your time, and your attention are valuable things. And when you believe that, truly believe it, you won't need tricks anymore. People will simply respect you because you've made it the only reasonable option.